When my husband and I stepped out of the car, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law excitedly asked him, "Wow, Henry, what's up with this car? It's amazing. I'm glad you're finally acting like one of us. But isn't it a bit sudden to buy such a fancy car?" Henry laughed and said, "This isn't my car, it belongs to Olivia's father." "What?" they both exclaimed at the same time. Then, my parents got out of the car. My in-laws looked completely shocked when they saw them. "That suit looks so expensive. And I recognize that brand, it's really high-end. Why are Olivia's parents dressed in such fancy clothes?" "Let me introduce myself, my name is Olivia, and I'm 28 years old. I work in an office and got married to my husband, Henry, last year. Henry has always been kind and caring since we started dating. I was overjoyed to marry him. Since we both work, we share the household chores. In fact, Henry is great at them, especially cooking. Sometimes he's even better than me. We support each other and live a happy life. However, my in-laws are a problem. They always assume I'm poor and look down on me." "Why?" "I think it all started when our families first met before our wedding. Henry's family consists of his parents, his sister, and him. His father worked at a bank and earned a good income. They love expensive brands and think wealth equals status. But Henry isn't like them. He doesn't care about designer clothes. He buys secondhand clothes online and wears them until they're worth the price. When I first met his family, I was surprised by how different they were from Henry. Honestly, I even wondered if he was adopted. Henry moved out as soon as he started college because he didn't share the same values as his family. Since his parents believe money is everything, they immediately judged my family when we met. My father owns a small factory. As soon as my in-laws heard that, they mocked him. "A factory? Sure, he's a president, but it must be a small, struggling business. The bank I work for would never approve him for a loan." I couldn't believe they spoke so rudely the first time we met. If Henry hadn't warned me in advance, I would have been furious. My parents stayed calm because Henry had already explained what his family was like. My father simply said, "Our business may be small, but we're doing well and can pay our employee salaries." Then my in-laws asked, "How many employees do you have?" "Oh, and I heard Olivia has an older brother." My father replied, "Our son is working today, he couldn't take the day off to be here." "Is he on a business trip or something? Does he work for a good company?" "He works for our company," my father answered. At that moment, my in-laws burst out laughing. "A family business? That means he couldn't even take a day off. They must not be doing well at all." They kept making fun of my family, no matter how many times Henry told them to stop. Eventually, Henry had to force them to end the dinner. That's why I have a bad impression of my in-laws, and they keep looking down on my family. Honestly, most people would have called off the wedding after that. But I love Henry too much to let his family ruin our happiness, so I married him anyway. As long as I stayed away from my in-laws, my husband and I could live peacefully and happily. Henry didn't like his family either, and I was still upset about how they treated mine. So, we avoided visiting them unless we absolutely had to. But about a year after we got married, they got tired of us keeping our distance. That's when they started forcing their way into our lives. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law began showing up at our house all the time. They said whatever they wanted, without holding back. "Henry never comes home to visit. Olivia must be keeping him away." Of course she is, she must be jealous of our lifestyle. Well, I can't blame her. We live at a completely different level than the poor. At least hurry up and have a baby. If she doesn't give us an heir, she's just a useless gold digger trying to get rich. They stayed at our house for hours, waiting until Henry got home. Since I finish work early, I was usually home by the evening, but Henry often worked late and wouldn't get back until just before 9 p.m. That meant I was stuck with them for almost 3 hours while they picked on me. They criticized everything. "This apartment is so small. Henry has a good job, he should be living in a nicer place. We like it, it's the right size for us." "Not for us. You mean it's right for you? Don't force your cheap lifestyle on Henry." They even looked through our fridge without asking. "So plain, don't you have caviar or fine wine? Stop looking in our fridge without permission." Ugh, how boring. Why did Henry marry someone like this? A poor, boring gold digger, what a rare find. "You can say what you want, but if you even think about touching our money, you'll regret it. We'll make sure you disappear from society." They mocked me, insulted me, and even threatened me before finally leaving. I told Henry about it, and he scolded them, but they didn't care, they just kept showing up. I started feeling anxious every time I came home. I even tried staying at a cafe after work, waiting until Henry finished so we could go home together. But when my in-laws saw us walking in together, they just found something new to criticize. "Look at her, clinging to Henry like a pest, she's taking away his freedom." Their constant harassment was tearing our marriage apart. I had enough. I wasn't the type to cause trouble, but my in-laws had pushed me too far. So, I decided to give them a taste of their own medicine. A few days later, my husband and I went to visit them. They were thrilled when Henry told them he was bringing me home. My mother-in-law even said, "I'm so happy to finally see Olivia again. I don't understand how making your wife miserable could be fun." I was disgusted. That weekend, we arrived at my in-laws' house in a luxury car. They ran outside, staring in shock. "Henry, what's with this car? This is amazing. I'm glad you're finally acting like part of our world, but buying something this expensive out of nowhere is a bold move." Henry just laughed and said, "It's not mine, it's Olivia's father's car." "What?" My mother-in-law and sister-in-law gasped. Then, my parents stepped out. They were dressed in elegant, high-end outfits, and my in-laws' jaws nearly hit the floor. "That suit looks expensive. I recognize that brand, it's luxury. How can Olivia's parents afford clothes like that?" And then, my brother stepped out. Tall, confident, and dressed just like my father. My in-laws' eyes widened in shock. "Who is that handsome guy?" "Nice to meet you, I'm Daniel, Olivia's brother." My in-laws were frozen. They were seeing my family in a completely different light from last time. Henry, annoyed by their reaction, said, "What are you all standing around for? Show them inside." My in-laws quickly changed their attitude. Come in, we'll get some tea ready right away." They were suddenly being polite, but their curiosity got the best of them. "So, how can you afford such expensive things?" It was so ridiculous. They only respected people who looked rich. My father answered calmly, "Yes, our factory is small, but the parts we make are unique. We get orders from major Japanese and international companies." My in-laws turned pale. Suddenly, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law started treating me nicely. My father-in-law, on the other hand, stayed silent, not saying a single word. But my sister-in-law had another target now, Daniel. "So, what do you do at your father's company?" she asked, smiling. "I've always been good at English," Daniel replied. "I handle business deals with overseas companies. I travel for work half the year." "Wow, that's so cool. Are you single?" "No, I'm married." She looked disappointed for a second. But then she leaned closer and said, "That's too bad, but honestly, I think I'd be a better match for you. What do you think? Want to go out for dinner sometime?" I couldn't believe her boldness. She was hitting on my married brother in front of our whole family. Daniel glanced at me and gave a slight nod. Then, he smirked and said, "Me? With someone like you? Are you serious?" He laughed. "You're funny, but do you really think you're better than my wife? My wife is a former model, highly educated, and the daughter of a powerful businessman. No matter how you look at it, you're nowhere near her level. It's amusing how people with a little money think they're at the top. I won't insult you, but maybe you should understand your place." His words hit her like a slap. She turned pale, completely speechless, looking like she might faint. And just like that, my sister-in-law finally got a taste of her own medicine. Finally, my father turned to my in-laws and said, "I don't care how rich anyone is. Yes, money is important, but it's not everything. You can't judge a person's worth by their money. Let's just be kind and stop focusing on wealth." He then bowed to them, apologizing for how we had acted earlier. My in-laws were shocked and quickly bowed back. Since that day, they stopped trying to bully me. In fact, they now call me all the time, trying to flatter me. I'm starting to find it a bit annoying that they contact me so often. Just so you know, neither my parents nor my brother are the type to flaunt their wealth. They were just helping me with my plan this time. My father prefers wearing a simple suit he's had for years, even if it's cheap. He doesn't care about luxury. My brother is very kind and never makes fun of people. That's why his father-in-law admires him so much. He even asked my brother to take over the company because he thought he'd be a better successor than his eldest son. I feel bad for making my family go through something they weren't used to. Everyone was exhausted on the way home. After that, I was able to return to a peaceful life with my husband. I haven't visited my in-laws since, but my husband still goes to see them for Thanksgiving and Christmas. My in-laws have changed. They no longer boast about their wealth. My husband even says he feels more comfortable around them now. I'm not sure if they'll stay this way, but for now, I'm happy the issue has been resolved. I will continue to take care of my family and live my life with humility. They thought they were at the top, but in reality, my family has made far more money than they ever did. My in-laws should be embarrassed. If I were constantly showing off to others, I'd feel small. I don't think truly wealthy people act that way. I'm glad I was able to teach them a good lesson. I hope we can continue living peacefully with our family.